Hello YouTube family, hope you guys are having a great day. Today I'm coming to you with something really interesting. We're actually doing our first video podcast episode. That's right, what you're going to be hearing today in the YouTube video is also going to be available on the Design Break podcast. If you guys haven't heard of my podcast before, shame on me because I probably should have shared it with you guys. You can find a link down below in the show notes. This is actually going to be released after the podcast episode. So if you guys haven't, definitely go check out that episode or this episode on the podcast or other episodes that we've recorded in the past. We're just starting to get back into the swing of things with the episode. But without further ado, let's get started. Let's jump in. So you might be asking, what are we going to talk about? Why are we talking about portfolios and everything like that? And I kind of got inspired by a Q&A I did on Instagram Live last week where I talked about portfolios. I talked about my new creative challenge, which if you guys definitely would like to check that out on my YouTube channel, where we're kind of working on building up everybody's portfolios. With everything going on right now, with the pandemic, with the elections and stuff like that here in the United States, it's a very scary landscape, and a lot of people are always out looking for new opportunities. They're looking for freelance projects and things like that. And so I figured it'd be good to spend some time and actually work on building portfolios or sharing with you how you can improve or better use your portfolios. So the first thing that we're going to talk about in today's episode, or probably the majority of the episode, is going to be what should go into your into your portfolio. And it's something that a lot of people, they hear differing opinions. And by the way, take what I say with a grain of salt. You don't have to do it this way, but this is something that I generally will do with my own portfolio. And I have shared this with a few other people in mentoring sessions, and it has been successful for them. So the first thing is that, and this is a misconception that you hear a lot, especially from professors, you hear this from mentors and everything like that, and that is that you need to have a extremely heavy portfolio. Someone actually said in the Instagram live session I did before that their professor said they needed 9 to 10 different portfolio pieces. That's not necessarily true. Okay, well, let's say it is kind of true. So what I think of in a portfolio, when I think of portfolio pieces, I think of case studies. I don't think of, 9 to 10 images. I think about 9 or 10 case studies, which are collections of images, creations that you did for a specific client or project. So for instance, in my current portfolio my current website, I do have, I think, between 12 to 15 case studies. Now, the new website I'm currently working on with my friend Chris Cannon, we're actually working on building out right now in Webflow. He is building out in Webflow right now my new website for Blue Cyclops Design Company. We've cut that down now to about 5 primary case studies and then 6 supporting case studies. And so what I actually suggest for those of you who are looking for a job at a studio or agency or even in-house at a company, you should probably try and keep about 3 to 5 case studies max. So the reason why I suggest only about 3 to 5 case studies is, think about it. Let's say that you are running an agency or studio and you're looking for someone to join your team as a product designer or a branding designer, depending on what your profession is or what your industry is. Now, you put out a call for portfolios for applicants and everything like that. You're going to get bombarded. You're going to have probably between 50 to 200 or more applicants. I've heard this constantly, time and time again, with all of my friends who have agencies or work at agencies. Whenever they put out a call for new potential employees or people to join their teams, it's always a windfall where there's so many people who apply for these jobs. So, you want to make it easy on these people. You want to make it easy on the people who are doing the hiring. If you send them let's say a PDF with 10, 20 case studies in it, they're not going to pay attention to that. In fact, most people who are looking at portfolios are maybe looking at between 2 to 3 of the case studies or of the pieces within the portfolio. They're not going through and looking at every single thing. So you want to make it easy on them, but you also still want to show them that you do more work. So a supplement to that, if you only showed 3 to 5 case studies, you can also include a link to your portfolio online or to your Dribble account or Instagram account so they can kind of see, that you have a bigger amount of work. Now, what I like to do is this, and this is something that I actually have suggested to many people over the last few years, and that is, if you have, let's say you have anywhere between 8 to 12 case studies, right? Like for instance, with me right now, I have, I think, 15 case studies total for, on my website. If I was looking for a job at some sort of agency or in-house somewhere, what I would actually do is I would take those case studies and I would figure out which ones kind of fit the work that they are looking for. So for instance, with me, I have branding and illustration with some strategy and other bits, tied into there. So if, let's say, I'm applying for a branding agency, then I'm going to probably put in about 2 to 3 case studies that have to do with branding, and maybe just throw in a illustration case study for a kicker. A lot of times agencies are looking for people who are multidisciplinary when it comes to their skill set, meaning that they're looking for somebody who can do more than just the one thing. Then what you can do is, let's say, you've applied to that position, then you're applying to an in-house position where they're looking predominantly for illustration work. So what you're going to do is you're going to just share the illustration case studies. So you're kind of going through and you're customizing your portfolio depending on the situation. That's something that I definitely suggest to everybody when it comes to building up your portfolios, when it comes to applying for jobs and things like that. For instance, if let's say a client comes to me or a client puts out a call for proposals for a project. Now, first off, I don't do a lot of proposals. I try not to. I usually will send statement of works and that's about it. But if you're putting together a proposal for a freelance project, so we were talking about applying for a job, now we're talking about freelance. If you're going to put together a proposal, you're not going to send them, like if they're looking for just illustration work, you're not going to send them branding case studies or branding examples and things like that, unless maybe it is a little bit illustrative. You're going to want to show them illustration. But if you have a branding client or someone who's looking for branding for, let's say, a brewery, kind of throwing back to the creative challenge that I put out on YouTube, if somebody is looking for a, some sort of illustrations or, some branding for their brewery, then you're going to want to show them the branding. The only time that you'll want to show them illustration in that case is if that's something that they are looking for or it's something that you think could benefit the brand. So you can kind of go through and you can pick and choose, what you share. Now, when it comes to your website, you can definitely have all of your case studies up there, but make sure that your first couple of case studies that you share are your best case studies. So if you do like what I do, which is branding and illustration, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to put the 2 very best projects, whether it's a branding project and an illustration project, you're going to want to put those as the first thing that people see. Basically, going off of my own experience, taking a look at my analytics for my website, the first couple of case studies are the ones that get the most views. Everything else barely gets touched at all unless it's a special use case. For instance, on my current website, I have Trust Radius and I have Bird Rock Brewing Company as the first 2 brands that people see. For the most part, those are the number 1 and 2 most viewed case studies. Everything else, I think one of my case studies has been viewed 5 times in the last year. And so you don't really need a ton of stuff. It's good to show that you have a lot of these different case studies, that you work with a lot of different clients and things like that. But it doesn't mean that everybody's going to check it out. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if that one case study that got 5 views was either from me myself looking at it, or if it was from the client itself looking at or client themselves looking at that specific case study. So we've been talking a lot about what to include. And we talked about how many case studies, picking and choosing the right case studies for the specific use case. Let's actually quick jump into what is a case study. Now, some of you who have never put together a portfolio, never had a website and everything like that, you might be asking, what the heck does he mean by a case study? first off, a case study is not just one single image and one paragraph of text. I don't know why I did two fingers here. Of course, you guys listen to the podcast can't hear that. But a case study is not one image and one paragraph of text. A case study is a collection of images and text that share the process from start to completion of your project. Now, not everybody goes and shows full-blown case studies in their portfolios or on their websites, and it really distinguishes yourself against other applicants. So if you actually take a look, let's say if like we, had done a call for different types of potential employer or employees to join the Blue Cyclops team and everything. I can tell you this right now. I would be focusing on the ones that are not just showing pretty images, final product. I'd be looking at the ones who are discussing how they go about, crafting the solution or solving the problem and everything like that. And that's because that is how I ended up getting my last job. And I'm pretty sure it played a major factor in me getting my first job out of college. So, you want to make sure in these case studies, you want to have, an intro where you talk about, the project. You want to have, the exploration process, the sketching, the things that you created that maybe didn't make the final cut, but could have made the final cut. And then you want to go in and talk about the solution, how you went about coming up to the right answer, coming up to the best possible design for what the client was looking for. And so when you do that, if you do a couple, or you do like 1 to 2 paragraphs for each one of those sections, and then you include the imagery. So like if you take your sketchbook, if you take photos of your sketchbook that you did, even, if you shared, sticky notes and things like that. In fact, in the Trust Radius case study on my website, I include sticky notes that I did for some illustrations. So you can kind of include a wide variety of different things in these case studies. But the important thing is that you talk about, what you were thinking about, how you came to the solution and everything like that. Now, that is very difficult. Let me say that, just be frank with you. It's very difficult to go through and to write about something that you did a while back. So sometimes, you have to think really hard. You have to go back and look at emails if this is for client work, or think about, what, was going on with the projects and things like that. So one thing that you might want to start doing, especially if you're a freelancer and you're starting to build up your portfolio of freelance work so you can get more freelance work, definitely start, documenting what you're doing, what you're thinking about, whether it's just posting things on Instagram or on Dribbble. One thing that I like to do is I like to go and post in progress shots on Instagram, and I kind of talk about what I was doing, what I was thinking about while I was creating it, some of the things I'm struggling with, some of the things that are going great with the project and everything like that. The reason I do that is not just to inform, to share with all of you, to share with my audience on Instagram. I do it because it's a way for me to also remember, what frame of mind was I in when I created that specific piece. So it's good to kind of take notes and to share those notes with other people. Now, something that I just thought about going off of that, and by the way, you guys know me, if you guys have ever listened to the podcast, you'll know that I kind of go off onto tangents, but one thing that you should really try and do is you should try and share as much as possible on social media, like on especially on Instagram. When I share my Instagram with my potential leads or my clients and things like that, what I'm sharing with them is a glimpse inside of my process. And it's a great way for people to get a 100-foot view or 1,000-foot view or whatever the expression is. It's a good way for them to kind of see, what's going on, like what you're working on and everything like that. And they can even see the mistakes that don't even make the case studies and everything. Because remember, yes, you want to share a whole lot in the case studies, but you don't want to share too much. If you are going through and putting together a PDF to share with a potential client and everything like that, I would try and only include one page of actual copy where you talk about the whole project. Make sure to use, titles, subtitles, use bullet points to when you share the solution, like what went well in the project, what results did the project give to the client, and also how did you feel about the whole process, like what did you learn and everything. And when you include that into the case studies and everything, clients and employers, they love it. You know, even if, because, you know, and this goes back to me, myself, and my last job I had, I was hired as a UI UX designer with zero, goose egg, no experience whatsoever in UI UX. But what I had was I had a great mind for design, a great eye for design, something that, you know, I kept hearing over and over again, you know, when they were talking about why they hired me. Number two, I also had a great skill set, you know, when it came to illustration and branding work, something that a lot of the other people at the agency did not have, especially the illustration, because that's something that came in handy a lot when I was working at the agency. And then three, they liked my determination. You know, how much I was determined to keep going, to keep learning, to keep doing. And so what ended up happening was, you know, they hired me with zero experience, but I did a lot of work to learn on the job. And so it is always possible to find that kind of situation where you don't have the experience and you can kind of, you know, get in there and start learning on the job. It's very rare. Don't count on that though, because, you know, that was an interesting situation, something that doesn't always happen, unfortunately. So be careful, you know, if you're out there and you're looking for a job and you're like, oh my God, UI UX designers, they get paid so much more, you know, than branding designers. I'm going to go and do that. If you've never done it before, take a second, talk to somebody who has, go through and try and learn from them and everything like that. That's going to help you out a lot. And that actually, you know, kind of brings me to another point with this when it comes to putting together your portfolio. You know, for instance, I'm going to tell you this right now, and a lot of people might fight me on this, and sorry if you're hearing the motorcycle in the background. It's a busy street and everything. But, you know, when it comes to what you include in your portfolio or what you include even in a job application or everything like that, people are not going to care about where you went to school. You know, I still remember, and this was the most, you know, in hindsight, this was the most disrespectful comment that I could have gotten from a interviewer was, do you feel like the fact that you didn't go to Art Institute or SCAD or RISD and everything, do you feel like that is a huge detriment to you and will, you know, hurt you in possibly getting this job? And I still remember, and by the way, the tone in which that this interviewer kind of did this was just really bad. It was really wrong. And so that's why it still kind of gets to me today. When it comes to your education, when it comes to where you went to school, where you didn't go to school, if you went to school and everything like that, that does not matter. I'm going to say that right now. If you're in school, I apologize, you know, if you might get offended by this and everything. Where you went to school does not matter. I could get a design degree at Harvard University, or I could get a design degree at Cuyamaca Community College and everything. Like, I could do that. And I can tell you this right now that it's not going to affect me, right? Because what's going to come down to, it's not going to be coming down to, you know, what classes you had, who was your professor, you know, and everything like that. It's going to come down to how hard you work, how much time you put into it and everything. Now, by the way, I'm not falling into that trap of like one of these Napoleon Hill or fake guru people or anything like that, you know, who say, you know, if you believe it, you can accomplish it. No. Yes, if you believe it, you can accomplish it. That is totally possible, but it doesn't happen unless you put in the legwork and everything. So, you know, make sure that everything that you're putting into your portfolio, you have worked hard for. You know, you haven't just, you know, excuse the expressions. This is probably something I need to watch out for, but please do not half-ass the extent of your portfolio, of the work that you put in it and everything like that. You know, if you don't like the work that you did or you don't like doing that type of work, do not put it in your portfolio. It's very important that you absolutely do not put anything in your portfolio, either that you half-assed, you didn't put in the hard work into doing, you know, and everything like that. If you spent 30 minutes on a logo design and then tried to spend another hour creating into a system, do not put it in there, because that is not well thought out. It's not going to represent you very well. It's not going to represent your talents very well. Yeah, it might be look cool and everything like that, but you didn't put in the time in order to create it and to make it, good and everything. So you want to make sure that you put in the time. If let's say you've done 50 million brochure designs and you hate them, you hate doing brochure designs, you better not include a brochure design in your portfolio, because you know what? That's only going to show them that, oh yes, you're great at brochure design. That's where we're going to stick him, or that's where we're going to stick her, we're going to have them, be an in-house graphic designer where they're making brochures all day. And so you want to make sure that you include, you want to include things in your portfolio that you want to do and everything. So hopefully, like this video isn't, this video and this podcast episode, it's not, too long for you guys. It's not totally crazy. Let's go back and let's kind of do a tally of the things that we talked about in this video or in this podcast. I'm going to try to remember, because honestly, sometimes I just go on tangents and I completely forget. But let's kind of do this in somewhat order. Or I don't know. I don't think it will be in order, but so number one, try and only have about 3 to 5 case studies inside of your portfolio, and make sure to tailor the specific case studies that you're sharing to the job that you're trying to get, or to the freelance project that you are trying to get. Make sure that your case studies aren't just one image or just, one paragraph of text. Make sure you actually go into detail and you share the process through imagery. Make sure you do that. Don't just share the pretty pictures. Please don't do that. Make sure that everything that you're sharing is your best work. It's not something that, you half-assed or you barely paid attention to. Make sure that, that it's stuff that you want to do, that you want to continue doing in your everyday life, or in your day job, or in the freelance projects that you're trying to do. And also, don't let anyone tell you that you're not good enough. If you feel like that, you could be better, let them know that. Let them know. Be honest with them. If you feel like, you have some learning to do, or, that you want to try harder and things like that, let them know. They actually appreciate that. They want to know that you're open to, getting better than where you are right now. They're not just going to stagnate and stay where you are, and you are going to learn as much as possible. So hopefully, this episode really inspired all of you and it answered some questions. If you have any questions whatsoever, or have any ideas of what you would like to hear me talk more about on this podcast or on the YouTube channel, and on this topic of portfolios, finding work, finding jobs, and everything like that, please feel free to leave comments down below in the YouTube video, or make sure that you send me a message on Instagram, or wherever it is that you guys are listening to this podcast, or wherever you guys follow me, besides the podcast and the YouTube channel. I hope you guys have a great rest of your day, and there will be more podcast episodes coming out. In fact, I have a backlog of 5 episodes I recorded last year in 2020. Those will be released very soon, and we will be recording new episodes as we go along as well. Well, have a great day, everybody. Enjoy, whatever you are doing, whether you are driving to work, commuting, and everything like that, whether you are sitting down trying to relax after a long day of work. Always remember to stay passionate, stay positive, and stay creative. And in case you guys are tuning in on the YouTube channel, remember to hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications as a motorcycle is driving by. And also remember to hit that like button. If you guys are tuning in on the podcast, remember to subscribe to the podcast. And if you guys, aren't subscribed on either or on the other, whatever, please do so. Dang, that was so, I don't even know what just happened there. All right, guys, that's it for me. Have a great day. Bye.